Now that I have the thrifted items, what do I do with them? What do I create with them? What items do I have in my stash that I can use to make them? Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne and you are on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take secondhand finds and make them over, and I share the process with you all here on the channel of how I do that. In today's video, it's some wall decor, some signage. So I just recently thrifted some pieces that were already meant for wall decor, and then I'm taking other secondhand finds and making them over. Oh my goodness, y'all. Oh my goodness. Along with using some of the IOD molds to make a beautiful sign. Oh, goodness gracious. So I hope you enjoyed today's content as much as I did making these. So I'd like to take claim for these two pieces, but nope, they are not my creation. They are somebody else's creation that I bought at an auction. But I was like, oh my gosh, they are almost ready to become signs. Now I have a texture issue. They're a little bit on the rough side for me. So I got to give them my ginger chick touch. That's just, we all have our own little vibe that we put on our things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get these sanded smooth. Now that I finished the not so fun part of the prep of sanding, but it just needed to be done. So now I have some watered down antiquing wax and some Waverly ink chalk paint mixture. And what I'm doing now that I've sanded it, I have exposed that very new looking wood. So I want to go back in and give that new wood some age. So now I want to do some patina on this, and what I'm going to do so that paint doesn't stick, so I can make chippy paint, is I'm going to apply some candle wax, and I just have a votive. It doesn't matter what kind of candle you use for its wax. I just happen to have thrifted some votives, and so I'm just going to rub it all over these wood frames and get that wax on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be using Colors Fusion's Victorian lace. It's a beautiful white color. Now, when I go to paint on it, I'm going to have a lot of paint on my brush. I don't really want to move my wax around too much. So I'm going to try to do minimal brush strokes, just getting the paint on, just kind of going back and forth. I do not have to have a complete coverage by any means because I'm going to be scraping a lot of this paint off when it dries. So you just want to get your paint on, but not going over your spots a whole bunch of times, moving that wax around. Now, will you just look at these little fellas? Are they not too cute? A 1980s something blue rocking horse. Yeah, y'all, I am going to be using that for one of these. And that cute little bunny that I thrifted not too long ago with that primitive little homespun fabric around his neck. And actually, to make some wordage, I'm going to be using a piece of pallet wood. So what I need to start off with is I need to cut my piece of pallet wood. So I want it just a little bit longer than what these are. So I'm just kind of going to measure out where I need to cut this piece. just need to share this moment with you all. If you're regular to my channel, you know that I don't use a lot of the power cutting tools, so I am being brave when I'm going over and using the miter saw. So when I went over to use the miter saw to cut these boards down, it was locked, and I had no idea, you know. Chris showed me how to use it, but he never showed me the locking mechanism. So I sat at that machine for I don't know how long looking like there's got to be some way to unlock this. What the heck? So I had to go to YouTube, found the one video, y'all. There was one video of a wife that had the same problem. Her husband taught her how to use the miter saw. Next day she goes out there. She can't open it up. So she's like, oh my gosh, I am so making a video to show the one little button that she painted red that is not a button, is actually a pole, and it is the thing that pulls in and out to lock it in the downward position for safety. So I just had to share that with you all. That, oh my goodness, it was frustrating, but as I'm sanding this, that gives you something to think about as I'm sanding these palette boards smooth. And I just absolutely love rocking horses. Rocking horses, if I can find them out in the wild that are vintage, I tell you, they do not last in my booth. But I don't know about this one because it's not, you know, anyway. So I thought, you know what? Why not give this blue rocking horse an update? So I'm going to go ahead and sand off it's that pine type of material that just soaks the paint in. So I'm going to try to get off as much as I can because I would like to repaint this, or I was going to stain it, but I could not get all that blue off there, especially getting in all the little pieces and parts, but I gave it a good try. And then the one thing about this horse, it was actually handmade. It has a signature. I know, I'm sorry, I'm changing it, y'all. But I'm going to take off the hanging system, and it's not flat. It actually has a curve to it. So that's going to make it interesting putting it on the picture, you know, to hang it on the frame. But I'll figure it out once we come to that point. Luckily, the rabbit is flat, so I can take those hanging system off. I'm going to go ahead and take off the ribbon off that. And the one thing about this one is it's like an MDF board. It's not really wood. And it is heavily textured, so I'm going to go ahead and just very gingerly with some 220 sandpaper, just take some of that texture. I don't want that sander to be there very long, just enough to flatten out that texture. To show a little bit of the brown underneath. I want to be able to give it more of an antique-y type of look. I'm actually slowly building up my collection of colors in my paint cabinet. But I do want to bring this horse back to just a brown. So no, I could not get much of that blue off in that area. Just a hard angle to get at. So I'm just going to be using Waverly's Truffle paint to give this blue horse, a brown. And now for my pieces of palette wood, yes, that's way too new a wood. So I'm going to use that same Antiquing Wax Waverly Ink chalk paint mixture to give these boards some age. Just like the perfect weathered patina with that black in there. Now my paint is dry, so I'm going back in with a metal scraper I just have. It's a spackling tool, whatever flat edge you want to use to start removing some of the paint. So where the wax was underneath the paint, it will start to scrape off. Now this is a little bit different because this wood that was used is really dry. So I did have to work a little bit harder to get it off, and I sanded it smooth. But I left a lot of the texture, so once I got working on it, it started to come off. But it just leaves that beautiful, chippy, worn off, aged patina. I just wanted it to be a little bit more chippy, so I just took some 220 sandpaper on my Orbital sander and just helped it along a little bit more. Oh, I'm loving on this rocking horse in the brown, but I don't want to distress it because I don't want to take the chance of going down to any blue. I don't want any blue on this showing. So to give it age, I'm going in with Jolie's black wax and just gingerly touching all the side areas, and then I will blend it in. Then after I got it the way that I love it, oh, I just absolutely love adding that black wax to that. I'm going to go ahead and seal the whole thing in using some polycrylic because I love that black wax so much on that rocking horse. You know I'm going to go in and do the same technique on this bunny. I did not plan it. I liked the little letter brown showing through, but I could not help myself. Still amazes me what a little bit of black wax blended in can do to age a piece. Now I'm going to go to my Cricut Maker and create some wording. I just want some general big font wording that I can transfer onto those pieces of palette. So I like to search Pinterest. I like to look for old signs, and then that's where I get my inspiration for my wording, like the brown hair and the rocking horse inn. I just thought those were just nice general wordings. Now I cut my stencil out on vinyl. This is Oracal 651 permanent vinyl, and I know that the palette wood one is uneven. Even though I sanded it smooth for texture, it's still uneven. And then I waxed it. I wetted it with the antiquing wax mixture, and then I put some of that black wax mixture. So I know it's probably not going to be the easiest to get to attach, but at least it'll give me something somewhat of a stencil. So I'm just going to get this transferred using some gridded transfer tape onto the wood. I just have to go very gingerly. I can get it to stick down, but as I'm pulling the transfer tape up, the vinyl wants to come with me. So I just go slowly. And then just work it off little by little. This is a personal choice. When I cut out my vinyl, I like to cut it as close in a square as I possibly can to the lettering. When I go to center it onto the object, this just helps me be able to eyeball it a lot better. So now I need to add a little bit of masking tape, so when I go to apply my paint color on my stencil, I don't go off the vinyl. Now for my stencil color, I'm using the same color as I painted the frames with, the Victorian Lace by Color Fusion, and I'm just using a sponge dabber. I'm not going to use this swirling technique because I know that it's not, with a stencil brush, it's not completely on there, and if I swirled, I'd probably just kind of go underneath it. And the makeup sponge may be, you could use that technique also, but I just happen to have some pouncers, and I don't want a complete coverage. I want it to look like it's been worn off in time, so I'm just doing very minimal on my pouncing sponge. Now I know a lot of people's first thought is to attach these to the board is to just nail them on, brad nail them on maybe. But I don't want to take a chance on the MDF board to split it. So what I'm going to do is I am using Gorilla Glue's 5-minute epoxy. And actually the palette board that I picked out also, same thing. It is warped a little bit. It is not a completely flat item. So, and the same thing with that. Sometimes when you brad nail in or you go to screw in dry pieces of wood or MDF board into a harder board, the wood splits. So I don't want to take that chance. So I just went ahead and got some of this Gorilla Glue epoxy. So in 5 minutes, it will set up. So it's a two-part epoxy, even though it comes in the same little tube. You do have to swirl it around and mix the two substances together. I'm just choosing to do it on the item. You can do it on a side plate if you wanted to. But this, once it cures, should hold these nice and secure. And then I'm just going to do a quick measure, really it's an eyeball measuring. And then I'm going to use some hot glue just for that instant stick. The hot glue would probably not be enough, especially since the board is not completely flat. I wouldn't trust it on gravity to stay in place. So I'm going to add some of the hot glue. I'm going to quickly flip it over. I'm going to press it down and hold it for X amount of time till I feel like it is secure. I'm trying to get better about signing my work, though my penmanship, 31 years of doing hair and carpal tunnel surgery, my penmanship sucks. So yeah, a stamp it is. So now I'm going to go ahead and I actually let that epoxy cure overnight before flipping this over. I just wanted to make sure it was on there. So now I'm just going to add some eyelet hanging system along with some 17 gauge wire, because with these pieces of wood, this is a nice heavy frame. So I'm just going to get the hanging system on and we will be good to go. Now, I could not help myself when I saw these in the thrift store. I'm like, oh, one, they're older, and two, such a unique shape. That's one thing. When I do make signs, I'm always looking for something that is unique. So, especially for $1.49, you can't go wrong. They're already black. So, minimal work to get it ready to make it into a sign. So, first off, of course, the ginger chick way. I'm going to get that back all pretty and cleaned up as much as I can. Scraping off, I don't know why. I don't know if it was just the paint on there that attached the newspaper, and then taking the tags off. I'm going to be using the crackle technique, where you just take school glue. I just have some Amazon school glue, just regular old like Elmer's, y'all. And I'm actually just painting it on. So just putting a nice layer. Now, actually on this one, I didn't realize that I was doing this, but I actually was getting a thicker layer on that I normally had. I don't know if it was the paint and it wasn't drying or soaking in. I don't know. I usually had never gotten it on quite this thick before, so we will see what happens. So a lot of times when I've done the crackle technique, it starts to soak into the item, and then you see drier spots, but this was just what it was. It was a nice thick layer of glue. So I'm going right over the top of it. I'm not waiting any time at all. Same thing I've always done. And I'm using the Color Fusion Victorian lace. It's a beautiful white, and I have a lot of paint on my brush because this is a one coat coverage, and you don't really want to, after you got the other paint on, you don't really want to disturb it by moving it. The more you work it, the more it just blends the it's the glue then gets blended in with the paint. It's not the glue laying underneath the paint. So just one coat coverage, and just don't try to overlap your paint. Now, a lot of times I'll just let my paint crackle on its own, let it sit overnight, but I thought just for the video, I would show you, if you wanted to add a heat gun, a blow dryer to help it along, how it will start making those beautiful crackles. And crackles it did make. So this is the next day. I let it completely dry overnight. There was a lot of glue on there. So as you see, I have a lot of crackles. So I'm just going back in and I'm going to go ahead and distress it. Now, normally I don't care about the crackles because I'm not making a sign over it. But because of how small this is and how small my lettering for my signage is going to be, the crackles may be a little bit on the big side. So note to self, less glue. I think it's just what this type of, like, it was like a press board type of board, I guess, or maybe I just had too much. So it's a-okay. We just, sometimes in the middle of craft, you've got to rework what you're doing. So I know for the one, I want to do a clay on there. I want to do this air dry clay sheep. I have a vision of these two signs being sheep inspired. So I'm going to go ahead and make a sheep using the IOD molds. And so first off, you got to put a release agent. So I just use baking soda. Some people use cornstarch. And I'm just using the IOD clay to make my mold. To glue my mold onto my board, I'm just using some Star Bond CA glue. I like this glue. It's a quick 15-second bond. Even with the moisture from the wet clay, I don't have any problems, and I can move right on to painting it even while the clay is wet. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I just got it on there. I'm going to use some of the Color Fusion Cashmere. That seems pretty appropriate, doesn't it, for this little sheep? So yes, I'm painting it while it is still wet. Now I'm actually going to go back in, and on the face and the feet and a little bit on the tail, I'm going to go ahead and with the black coal of the Color Fusion and paint a little bit more detail than just painting the sheep all one color. Fun fact about my daughter used to show sheep at fair, and this is the type sulfix sheep, I believe it was, that she don't we were just people that showed animals at the fair. We weren't really farmers, y'all. So she would be the expert at what type of sheep I was just the parent in the background. So now I let this dry completely overnight. I did see I had a little bit of crackle, but you know what? I want the crackle on my air dry. I don't really mind that because I want this to look like it is old. So I guess it's just a crackle project all around. So now I'm adding a Waverly Antiquing wax. So I know if I just put black lettering on that white, it is not going to show up very much. So yep. I'm just taking a brush and I'm going to do antiquing wax all over the whole project, and then I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess. It's funny, I used to say that antiquing wax made everything better, but now I'm on to Jolie's black wax makes everything better. So the two together are just wonderful. So now what I'm doing is adding a little bit more age. And oh my gosh, my heart, I just absolutely love adding black wax. It just changes the patina and gives it that nice aged look. But now that I did both boards the same, as you see, I did not do a mold on one of them. I thought it's fun to do two different projects, similar but different. So I'm going to seal this all in with some polycrylic before moving on to my Cricut to make some stencils. I'm going to go into my search engine and look for a sheep. I just want a shadow of a sheep for the one. I don't want to try to do any detail work on that much of a crackle. So I'm just going to copy and paste onto and then size it appropriate for what size board I have. And then I actually looked up, yet again, I love to look up old signs, and that's where I get my wording from. So the same thing with this hand spun wool and the date, I just got it from an old sign that I saw on Pinterest. Then when I get my general idea of what I want to do, then I can go back in and I can play with fonts. I can figure out, do I want to change the font? Do I want this font to stay the same? There's so many fonts on the Cricut Design Studio. Holy cow. So you just kind of play. You don't have to have the whole wording be the same font. You can have each different line be different fonts. It's just the fun of creating your own stencil. Somebody was very happy that it came in from the workshop. So now that I have it all the way that I want it to be, I'm going to go ahead and attach it all together. So now when I go to make my wording for the sign that I already have the mold on, my sheep mold, what I did was measure what size that sheep was, because I want to go ahead and curve. I have a curved vision in my head for my wording. It is a lot of fun to be able to create your own stencil, use your vision, and see it come to life in a stencil form. So I love when I'm working on a project to cut it all out at the same time. That I have my stencils on my board, I'm just going in with some of that black coal Color Fusion paint. I'm using the sponge dabber on this one. My vinyl is a good one on there. So yep, I'm just gonna go, it's gonna be a little light at first, and then I'm gonna have to go ahead and apply a second coat to get it the black that I want. I definitely want to make sure that my letters are black. Color Fusion has a top coat with it. I don't need to go in and seal anything in. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do a hanging system. Because of the mold, I wanted to make sure that I put it on a towel so I didn't have any breakage or anything like that. And now I'm just using those. These boards aren't very heavy, so I'm just using the hammered in type of hanging system. Okay, you guys, what did you think? I am glad that I finally found something to use the bunny on. If you're a regular on my channel, you know I thrifted those a while ago. But your first thought is always to do Easter on a bunny, and I like to make decor that you can use year-round, that is versatile, that doesn't go in a box. If I spent that time, I want people to show it off. And then I love bumping out the palette wood to use the wording. Absolutely love that. And what do you think of that rocking horse? That is something you do see, those 80s type of things in the thrift store, and I'm glad that all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I think I can put it on that board. And I absolutely love how it turned out. Oh my goodness, now I want more. I want more. So anyhow, and then which one was your favorite of the sheep? Did you like the mold of the sheep, or did you like me stenciling the sheep? So, you know, I wanted to try two different techniques to see which one I liked, and I loved, yeah, so depending on how much glue, I probably added a lot of glue this time, and I got really big crackles, so there's that. So actually coming up with the idea of antiquing wax and aging it really actually tied it all together. That's why I always say God wink moments, when he inspires me and tells me, hey, this is how you can fix that. I know that doesn't look right now, because if I put my black wording on all that black showing, it's not really going to show. So anyway, you know, you just kind of work with what happens with a craft. Sometimes your plan in your head doesn't always come out in a 1, 2, 3 step, does it, y'all? So anyway, give me a quick comment down below. Have I inspired you to look at secondhand finds in a new way? And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this content for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye!